call the October 21st meeting of the Maumelle City Council to order. The first order of business is the invocation and pledge of allegiance. I ask you to all please rise for those. And Alderman Anderson is going to lead us in that.
Dear Heavenly God, thank you for letting us all come together on this fine day and help us guide, guard, and direct us to do the city business in the way that you want it done. Please be with servicemen and women and families that guard and help us to keep our liberty and our freedoms safe. Again, please be with us as we do the city's business, and hope to glorify your name in doing so. We do this in Jesus Christ's name. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. We have a lot of special guests in the audience tonight, but there's nobody that's on the agenda right now, so we'll move on to the next part, which is the approval of the minutes from October the 7th regular meeting. Are there any corrections or additions?
Second.
It's been motioned second that the council approve the minutes of October the 7th. Is there a discussion on that motion? Not all those in favor, please signify by saying yes.
Yes.
Any opposed, say no. Motion passes. Next item is public comment card, and I've got several public comment cards, and three of which are not on the regular council agenda, so we'll take those at this time. If you would, as you come to the microphone, please state your name and address for the record. First card I have is from Mr. Gary Childers.
Yes, my name is Gary Childers. My address is 11 Hickory Lane, Maumelle, Arkansas.
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Okay. As I stated on my public comment form, I had been out of town for a while, and I came back and found a notice, apparently a code violation on my fence. I got to reading the code, and I determined several ambiguities in the code itself, and I've been probably dealing with law and insurance and such since 1976. I've been a insurance adjuster, multi-lines, with the Arkansas Work Comp Commission, their compliance department for 12 years, being with the Arkansas Insurance Department for 10 years. I just retired from them in August. I've got copies that I've highlighted there of the ambiguities.
Yes, sir.
I'll pass now.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Well, I do have a representative photograph of my yard and the fence. What I would like to say for the record is evidenced by the code itself. Arkansas Code annotated 14-55-703 says in determining the context of any ordinance so codified, it shall not be necessary to go beyond the code. The code shall be admitted in evidence without further proof and shall be prima facie evidence in all courts of the existence and regular enactment of each particular ordinance contained therein. In other words, the code speaks for itself. The code states aesthetically pleasing condition, which is actually a matter of taste or personal opinion. It also states it has minimum standards, and then states on number 4 it must be, and then it states must be a 6-foot treated pine dog-eared fence. Pine being probably one of the worst fencing materials you could use. I don't use it. My fence was put up when I bought my house, and it was cypress. It's very hard to find cypress. I found cedar. I did find pine I don't use pine. That's asking for trouble. It warps, it cracks, it doesn't weather well. But I digress. It must be noted that the Arkansas Attorney General has stated, and I quote, "A statute is ambiguous where it is open to two or more constructions, or where it is of such obscure or doubtful meaning that reasonable minds might disagree or be uncertain as to its meaning. Ambiguities have also been set by legal precedents. Note the code states the minimum standards. As I said, the standard 6-foot treated pine. The code enforcement notice, which also is attached there, has checked both finished side needs to face out, fence repairs with finished side in. This, to me, is further evidence of ambiguous language, as the enforcement officer has checked both in and out on fence repair or replacement. And I'm saying, I guess, the bottom line is, to me, a fence is a fence. There's a lot of people that like it in, a lot of people like it out. A lot of people like it weathered. They like that rustic look. It would appear to maintain a functional fence would be the simplest language and most beneficial to the citizens of Maumelle. In fact, by this notice, I don't know what has been asked of me.
Well, basically, it says finished sides needs to face out because you put the finished side in. I mean, that's clearly, I mean, it's what it says. It says finished sides needs to face out because the fence repairs were made with the finished side in.
Okay.
I mean, that's what I would say.
Okay, that's the code enforcement letter.
That's correct.
I'm addressing the fence requirement as being a ambiguous code, multiple meanings.
Well, the last statement of Section 4 says any fence adjacent to a public area must have finished side facing out. I can understand the pine issue, but it also, in the part up in Section 1 there, refers to fences may be erected, made primarily of decorative wrought iron or simulated wooden or composite materials can be used. So, I mean, there are provisions in there for something other than pine.
Well, when you take the code in its entirety, aesthetically pleasing condition is a matter of taste. It's a matter of opinion.
In most people's opinion, I would say.
Or if there's just one other opinion, that's two opinions.
Okay.
All right.
No, there was not a citation, correct?
Thank you.
No, it's just notification.
Just notification, yes.
Typically, I mean, certainly, any arguments you wish to make be made to the district court, who would be more of an appropriate location in terms of doing any sort of statutory interpretation. So if you do receive a citation or wish to pursue it in front of the district court, I would recommend that you do that. If the council wishes to come forward and sponsor an amendment to the code, then that would be up to a council member to do that.
Okay.
And you can certainly work with any of them to suggest that, and I'll be happy to work with any of them who want to sponsor that.
I've talked to a lot of people, and they're really not happy with this code at all.
Again, the two methods of changing it would be changing the code or going forward to district court.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Childers.
May I see that picture for just a moment, Alderman Hogan? Just one question I have for Mr. Childers. On this photograph that you gave me, sir, or that you provided us, sir, the fence in question is yours in the foreground, right?
Correct.
Not in the background? The one in the background kind of stood out to me a little bit because the fence posts seemed to go on a horizontal line.
That photo was taken in 2005. I was building palm trees.
Yes, sir.
And I was selling them on the internet, instructions on how to build those.
Hence the little totem pole looking thing there?
Yeah, that's concrete.
Okay.
That weighs 350 pounds. That was a booger to put up. But,
Okay, okay.
Yeah, and that generally is the neighborhood. Well, I might mention this too. Several years ago, there was a concrete fort back there in the park.
Mm-hmm.
Now we had owls and egrets and everything else in the park, and they're still there, thank goodness. The city had wanted to. There was some kids who were smoking dope or something in that little fort, and the city wanted to spend tens of thousands of dollars putting up lights, putting up barricades and everything else. And I talked to my alderman, who at that time I think was Melody Pake.
Mm-hmm.
she left a note at my door. That's the only reason I knew that they were going to do this.
Okay.
I talked with her. I came to the meeting, but it was running long, and I had to go to church, and she spoke for me. That the easiest thing, and instead of spending tens of thousands of dollars to do this and chase all the wildlife out of there, tear down the fort for a couple $100. Apparently she represented me well, because that's what they did. They spent a couple $100 tearing the fort down and not spend tens of thousands of dollars putting up lights that would have chased out the eagles now. So I appreciated her on that.
So, sir, this picture that is from 2005, is this a true representation? If I went out there and looked at your fence, this is basically structurally what I would see today within reason?
There's to the if you went to the left of that, that would have been representative of my fence, but my neighbor hired a contractor that cut a tree down that fell on my fence.
Okay.
And he split.
Okay.
So he left a bunch of fake phone numbers and everything else. I ended up hauling the fence all the way from Congress. The only way I could find it, you just can't find that fence.
Yeah.
Put it in. I've got a swimming pool, and my main concern, I haven't been in insurance, it's right nuisance. So I wanted that taken care of then, and I did.
Okay.
And that was done probably maybe a year ago.
Okay. City Attorney Davis has given, I think, excellent guidance on this issue. Is that based on the code that we have here, code enforcement is duty bound to adhere to that code. Now, are there some things that we could do to look at it? Perhaps so. And if we did go that route, we would have close consultation with our own code enforcement personnel to see what would work. One thing I will say that I think you're accurate about is a few years ago I had a fence that fell over during a bad windstorm. And that pine, or whatever type of wood you're looking for, but basically the dog-eared fence posts, which you have here, same ones that I have at my home, I don't know what it was architecturally, but they sort of fell out of vogue, and I could not find those. And to that end, my neighbor who is here tonight, we sat and we dog-eared board by board to make them look like those in which we have sort of a prescription for based on this code.
Well, I just found a source for dog-eared pine. You can 4-inch called Fence.
Sure.
Brokers, I
okay.
think, and Bryant, and that's the only place I found that you can get those.
But it was a difficult search, and I remember doing an all-point search to try to find those, so it was difficult, and perhaps there is some things we can look at there.
I bought all that, Ingalls had, and the only reason I knew Ingalls would put most of these up is because their signs are on these fences, and I bought the last 50 they had.
That's why I can't find them. You bought them all up.
Well, but you can get them now.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Alderman Mosley?
I guess all I'd say is, that may be out of compliance, but I'm hoping we're enforcing rules equally between commercial and developers and residential, because I know we had a gentleman in here maybe a month ago talking about some of the shadow type fences at the entrance to Maumelle were in disarray, and I don't think the city had really enforced the code on that.
There's been a letter sent to that property owner also. Yes.
And the fence requirement for commercial properties are different completely than they are for residential properties.
Okay, the next comment card I have is from Miss Terry Jones.
I always have to do this. Terry Jones, 25 New Montco. The issue of siphoning water from Lake Willistine for use by 2 golf courses has been again raised. Our group, Friends of Lake Willistine Park, has not sought out this issue. But since our group deals with the care and preservation of the park, it has been brought to us. Alderman Mosley has requested that a survey on this issue be sent out to our members, and we'll do that in the very near future. But my comments tonight are mine alone and do not represent any opinion or stance by Friends of Lake Willistine Park. This is a controversial issue that must be addressed. Like all controversies, there are 2 sides. But in the past, only one side has received much attention and consideration. Since one of the responsibilities of government is the fair allocation of scarce resources, this is the job before the council, to thoughtfully consider both sides of this issue and to come to a reasoned and very public decision. Transparency on this issue has been sorely lacking for many, many years, and frankly, that has hurt both the city and the country clubs in the court of public opinion. More than a few folks still think the country clubs are stealing the water. The process of this governmental allocation of a public resource to private businesses is, and how do I say this, inadequate and so outdated as to be meaningless. In fact, the only written agreement presented to justify this action expired on October 31st, 1991. 1991. That's nearly a quarter century ago. Now, I don't claim to know what the perfect decision on this issue is, but I do know this. It is high time for the council to revisit this issue and come to a decision that befits the Maumelle of 2013. To base current decisions and actions on an expired document that's 22 years old is not sufficient. Alderman Mosley raises some legitimate, if uncomfortable, questions. Since this is the transference of a valuable public resource to a private business, the question is this transference justifiable? Now, let me stipulate. We all agree that the country clubs are great assets to Maumelle. No one disputes that. There's no question about that. And no one in their right mind wants to let either one of those country clubs fail, if that can be avoided. But then the discussion about allowing them to take water from Lake Willestein always seems to stop there. But there is more to the discussion. Country club members emphasize that they generate revenue for the city in the form of taxes, and that's true. But let's follow that logic. The apartments on the lake also pay taxes. I don't know how much. They might even pay more than the country clubs. I don't have any idea. But the fact is, they do pay taxes. Does that allow them to also siphon water out of the lake during times of droughts to keep their landscaping alive? Homeowners pay taxes. During dry, hot periods, can tax-paying homeowners only siphon water from Lake Willestein also? I'm just bringing up issues to think about. Speaking of the park at Maumelle, they sell a view of the lake. Apartments with a water view cost more money. When the water level of the lake is lowered, the coves suffer the most, and they're located on a cove. Does this agreement hurt them? Something to think about. Here's another point for your consideration. The idea that the water in Lake Willestein costs the city nothing and therefore can be easily given away is problematic to me on several levels. First, I'll just let you know that statement makes many folks irritated or outright mad, because the only water that's free to them comes from the sky, from God. Any other water they need, they have to purchase from MWM. But to me, that's not the main problem with that notion. The main problem is that it's wrong. That water has intrinsic value. Let me put it this way. If I'm digging a hole in my backyard to plant a tree and I accidentally strike oil, does that oil have no value because it cost me nothing to find it? It's also important to take into consideration that the lake wasn't put there to service the golf courses. It was and is meant to be a focal point for residents. In fact, the original federal plan called for high-rise apartments to ring the lake, which would serve as an aesthetic asset to all citizens. Maumelle Parks and Recreation is planting sod around the lake. This is a great thing. It is obviously going to enhance the look of the park a great deal. This sod will have to be irrigated from the lake. If another extended drought comes, who will be granted water? Are we going to have to choose between a public park and private interest? I think this is something that needs to be decided before that time. As you proceed with your deliberations, it's important to remember that you cannot make a decision which is fair to both sides if you don't first acknowledge that there are two sides. But it's equally important to remember that we all have friends and neighbors on both sides of this issue. Clearly, everybody just wants what's best for Maumelle. So, you all are going to have to decide a course of action that's fair to all parties. Process matters. Whether you decide to keep things the same or make changes to this water sharing agreement, this time the public really needs to understand the reasoning behind any course of action. This time, the public should not feel that only the private country clubs and the city were parties to an arrangement which involves a public asset. This time there should be a clear understanding that 3 entities are agreeing to this plan: the city, the private country clubs, and citizens at large. And I think it is also equally important that any plan should be codified, ratified by the council, and monitored by the city. As I said, process matters, and that would do a lot to settle this issue. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Ms. Jones. The next item we have is, we have State Representative Mr. Mark Lowry here with us tonight, and he would like to make a presentation of flags. Is that correct, Representative Lowry?
Mark Lowry at 229 Summit Valley Circle, Maumelle. Some of you may not be aware that the state of Arkansas provides, as requested, Arkansas flags and U.S. flags for the city. The thing I was not aware of is that the city uses so many pairs of them. I had already presented one set of flags to City Clerk Clausen, and he informed me that you have at least 5 other locations where you need the flags. So I just wanted to make a formal presentation tonight of those flags to the city, and just stand ready anytime you have another location that comes up. I'll also be presenting flags to the Charter School Academics Plus when they dedicate their flagpole, 1st of November. I know Mr. Saunders is going to be involved in that ceremony. So just wanted to make that formal presentation.
Thank you very much, and we do appreciate them. And they don't last as long as we want them to either. So, yeah.
Well, I found out today, my quota for the year starts over January 1, so I'll have to...
Okay, thank you.
I hope we emptied you out.
No, not quite.
Okay, I do have one more comment card, but it's on an agenda item, so we'll hold that until we get to the item. Next item is financial statement review, and all the council members have a copy of the financial statement in their packets. Are there any corrections or questions for Ms. Thompson? Alderman Mosley?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask, I noticed there on expenditures, city services running pretty high over budget, and also quite a bit over this time last year. Is there anything specific we can point to in that gets to $400,000 over where we were this time last year? I assume I'm reading that right. It's the last item.
I know we've got, most of what you're seeing there are the bond payments. Yeah, that's the only thing that's really a big difference from last year.
It doesn't pop out at you immediately, it just send an email or something.
I would take a closer look at it and let you know.
Thank you very much.
Are there any other questions for Ms. Thompson? Not, I'd entertain a motion to accept the financial statement.
So moved.
Second. It's been motion second that the council accept the financial statement for September. Is there any discussion on that motion? If not, all those in favor, please signify by saying yes.
Yes.
Any opposed, say no. The financial statement is approved. Next item is the procedural motion. I need a motion from the floor to read all resolutions and ordinances by title only.
So moved.
It's been motion second that the council read all resolutions and ordinances by title only tonight. Is there any discussion on that motion? If not, all those in favor, please signify by saying yes.
Yes.
Any opposed, say no. Motion passes. First item under unfinished business is the third reading of ordinance number 825 requiring approval of specific plans. Mr. Clerk, if you'd read that by title only.
An ordinance of the City Council of the City of Maumelle, County of Pulaski, State of Arkansas, an ordinance to be entitled Ordinance Number 825, an ordinance requiring approval of specific plans by the Maumelle Planning Commission for above-ground placement of any transmission facilities in industrial zoned areas in the City of Maumelle and for other purposes.
Alderman Lewis.
I just wanted to say I'd look forward to the vote for this evening, and to compliment Alderman Norris for bringing this forward. I think it's a good ordinance, and plan to vote yes.
Alderman Mosley.
Yeah, this ordinance doesn't give me much heartburn or anything, but I would just prefer to keep a chance for the city council to really specifically on each one of those, so I'll be voting no on that.
Thank you, Alderman Mosley. Alderman Norris.
Well, then I'd like to go ahead and make a motion that we pass ordinance 825.
Second.
It's been motion second that the council pass ordinance 825. Is there a discussion on that motion? If not, Mr. Clerk, roll call vote.
Alderman Hogue.
Yes.
Alderman Norris.
Yes.
Alderman Johnson.
Yes.
Alderman Lewis.
Yes.
Alderman Hastings. Yes. Alderman Kelly.
Yes.
Alderman Saunders.
Yes.
Alderman Mosley.
No.
Ordinance passes. Next item under unfinished business is the third reading of ordinance number 826 concerning banners in certain city parks. Mr. Clerk, if you'd read that by title only.
An ordinance of the City Council of the City of Maumelle, County of Pulaski, State of Arkansas, ordinance number 826, an ordinance of the City of Maumelle, Arkansas, amending the Maumelle City Code concerning banners in certain city parks within the City of Maumelle and for other purposes.
Alderman Mosley.
Yeah, I've still been thinking about this. I went and visited with the Parks and Rec director on it, and we talked for quite a while, and I would propose just a minor change to this. On the third whereas, it says to allow authorized nonprofit groups to place limited, and then insert two words, business sponsorship banners on certain fencing parks identified. This is what they brought to us and requested, and it would just basically be repeating what it is that they were wanting, and it would make me feel more comfortable about the ordinance. So I guess I would make a motion that we make that minor change.
I'm sorry, what was the change?
To insert the words business sponsorship between limited and banners under the third whereas. So we read to say authorize nonprofit groups to place limited business sponsorship banners instead of just limited banners.
Would that be a minor change to the ordinance?
That part of the ordinance just expresses the intent of the council, so I think that would be fine, assuming that the council approves that.
Here's the amendment change. Okay, that'd have to be in the form of a motion to make an amendment, so.
Okay, I would like to make that motion that we insert business sponsorship and limiters on that ordinance.
Okay. Do I hear a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion to amend the ordinance 826 to add the words under the third whereas between limited banners, business sponsorship. Is there any discussion on that motion? Alderman Saunders?
Thank you, Mayor. I have a little concern about putting those words in because we do have other organizations in this town that are not necessarily business-oriented. For example, the Lions Club might want to put up a banner. Maumelle Players might want to put up a banner. I mean, there's any number of organizations. Maumelle Garden Club. So I would hesitate. I don't think I could support putting this in.
Thank you, Alderman Saunders. Alderman Norris?
Before we spend a long time talking about this, my understanding is it has no practical effect. Is that right? On the actual ordinance, it's not codified or binding or other than...
That portion of the ordinance is not codified, that's
Okay.
correct.
That's all. Thank you.
Okay. Is there any more discussion on the motion to amend ordinance 826? If not, all those in favor of amending ordinance 826, please signify as stated in the third whereas to add business sponsored between limited and banners. Is that correct?
Sponsorship, yes.
Sponsorship. Okay, I'm sorry, sponsorship. Business sponsorship banners. If there's no discussion, all in favor, please signify by saying yes.
Yes.
Any opposed, say no.
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 Motion fails. Alderman Norris?
I have my own motion to amend. There's references to non-profit groups are the groups who can put these signs up. They have to, I mean, I'm sure you all have read the ordinance, but they have to have the agreement with Parks and Rec already to be using the facility. And so my motion to amend is going to be just to remove the words non-profit from those groups. It still would make it so that the groups have to be using the facility or the grounds through an agreement with Parks and Rec. And my understanding is that right now, all of the groups that are doing that are nonprofit, but I don't want to exclude someone in the future just because they make a profit versus not. So I'd like to make a motion that we amend Ordinance 826 to remove the terms nonprofit.
Second.
Okay, so you're referring to in section 5826?
5826B,
B.
there's 3 references
Okay.
to nonprofit. And I guess technically there's one in the whereas that I missed also.
Okay, so it would just say only those groups?
Correct.
Okay. Or placement by authorized groups only. Okay, so, all right. So you're removing the words nonprofit in the whereas and in section 5826 in item B 3 times.
Correct.
Okay, I have a motion. Do I hear? Oh, I had a second, right? I did have a second. Okay. Is there a discussion on that? Alderman Hope?
I wanted to know if there was a specific reason that you had put the word nonprofit in there.
Because the other individuals that use the facilities for these types of programs are contractors with that operate under a different contract with the city of with the Parks and Rec Department. Like, for instance, the tennis camps. That entity is governed by a contract for provision of that specific camp. So it's not really a sponsorship. I think it's atypical to see sponsorships for a for-profit business. That was something that didn't cross my mind, quite honestly.
And if they took the words out?
In my mind, I mean, I think, again, I'm not sure. The concept is a little unique to me, a sponsorship for a for-profit business. But, you know, I think that probably at this point the council, you know, if that is what the council intended, it's the council's intent that rules in terms of whether it's a substantive change or not a substantive change. If that's something completely different than what you expected from the ordinance, then, you know, certainly that would be a substantive change.
It's just a little bit of concern to me that we've sat here now and this is the 3rd reading, and now all of a sudden we're looking at changing it. I personally think it's fine the way it is.
The only thing I can think of is most businesses may not give to unless they can get some tax deduction, and they're going to get that from nonprofit groups normally. So, I mean, that's the sponsorship I think is going to come partly because they get a tax write-off.
But I think maybe I'm looking at it differently. The entity that's going out and soliciting is a nonprofit organization.
That's correct.
And they are, I mean, I think the persons who are going to be buying the sponsorships are going to get a tax write-off because they're contributing to a nonprofit.
Right.
If they are contributing to a for-profit business, they're not going to get a write-off anyway. And I think it needs to stay it is.
Yeah, I agree.
You know, when it and another, quite frankly, I don't like to discuss things on the fly. I do like to have the ability to kind of look at them beforehand a bit. But you know, we do have ordinances that do not allow off premises signage. If you have a for-profit business I mean, I'm not exactly sure how that works, but if we're doing a sign for a for-profit business that has a location somewhere, putting a sign up on a city park, I think it gets a little more tangled at that point.
I'm not even sure that we, the city, would allow a for-profit business to be using our facility.
I can't speak to that. I'd have to defer to Mr. Rover on that and council.
Well, and the only way we do it is exactly as the city attorney explained it a while ago. The tennis instructor has a contract to use the tennis court, but the city gets part of the fees she collects as a part of that. So that is a for-profit group.
And
that would be
the sign actually promotes the camp.
It promotes the camp,
not necessarily
not the person, the business. It's usually an advertisement for the camp that here's the week it's going to be done, or that same. So, what this was brought forth by the soccer association is who brought it forth originally, but then the other ones also. But as far as I know, all the ones currently using The large complexes like that are nonprofit groups that administer the programs. So we have a motion on the floor to amend the ordinance to strike the words nonprofit from the third whereas and also from section 5826 under item B. Does everybody understand the motion? If there's no other discussion, all those in favor please signify by saying yes.
Yes.
Any opposed say no.
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 Motion fails. 2 yeses and 6 noes. That's what I heard.
Then I'd like to propose that we approve ordinance number 826.
Second.
It's been motion seconded that the council approve ordinance number 826. Is there any discussion on that motion? Alderman Mosley?
I'm going to go ahead and vote in favor of this, but I would certainly want to revisit it if it becomes a political thing, if we start using these signs for politics and that sort of thing. Just thought I'd throw that out. Thank you.
Okay. Is there any discussion on ordinance number 826? Not, Mr. Clerk, roll call vote.
Alderman Mosley.
Yes.
Alderman Saunders.
Yes.
Alderman Kelly.
Yes.
Alderman Anderson. Yes. Alderman Lewis.
Yes.
Alderman Johnson.
Yes.
Alderman Norris.
Yes.
Alderman Hope.
Yes.
Okay, motion passes. Ordinance is approved. Next item is the second reading of ordinance number 827, declaring extraterritorial jurisdiction. Mr. Clerk, if you'd read that by title only.
An ordinance of the City Council of the City of Maumelle, County of Pulaski, State of Arkansas, an ordinance to be entitled ordinance number 827, an ordinance declaring extraterritorial planning jurisdiction by the City of Maumelle, adopting a map and further purposes.
This item is on second reading. If there's no objection, it will be placed on third reading at the next meeting. Next item is the second reading of ordinance number 828, waiving competitive bidding procedures. Mr. Clerk, if you'd read that by title only.
Being enacted by the City Council of the City of Maumelle, County of Pulaski, State of Arkansas, an ordinance to be entitled ordinance number 828, an ordinance declaring exceptional circumstances, making a competitive bidding procedure not feasible or practical, authorizing the mayor to negotiate and execute contracts on behalf of the city and for other purposes.
This is also on second reading. No action is required tonight, and it will be on third reading at the next meeting. Okay, next item is resolution number 2013-38, adopting a strategic plan. Mr. Clerk, if you read that by title only.
Resolution of the City Council of the City of Maumelle, County of Pulaski, County of Pulaski, State of Arkansas, resolution to be entitled resolution number 2013-38, a resolution adopting a strategic plan for the development of the City of Maumelle and for other purposes.
Thank you. This item has been, it was on our agenda last meeting as under introduction. We have representatives from Craft & Toll and Associates here tonight, Ms. Julie Luther, Mr. Dave Roberts, and Mr. Cherry Kelso, that are here to answer any questions that the council may have. We'd gotten one more written comment, and it was from Alderman Mosley, and it just basically mentions, I guess it's paraphrasing here, but it basically just implementation and talking about LU 2.1 and LU 2.2 of the Appendix G implementation matrix, and it's talking about making changes to land use and zoning. Actually, it's talking about making changes to the ordinances that affect land use and zoning, not actual specific properties that would be rezoned. Unless I misunderstood there.
My big concern is that we'll be making some changes to land use and zoning kind of up front before a developer comes in and wants to do something specific to that property.
We can't do a zoning change unless the property owner requests it, or unless we're willing to pay them compensation for that rezoning. Okay. Now, land use can be done, but zoning cannot be done without a property owner's request.
Okay.
Or payment.
Or his permission. I mean, we could make the request, and it would have to be at his permission.
If the council makes a zoning change which affects the value of the property for whatever its current use is, then that would be considered a taking under the Fifth Amendment. The city would be required to pay reasonable compensation for that change in the value to the current owner.
Right. I guess it looks to me like we might be redefining some zoning definitions and things like that that would allow, say, different uses or more varied uses within a zoning category.
And it would do that, but that wouldn't automatically put a land zone that way, even if the changes were made to the ordinance, because we have certain zonings right now, but we don't have land that's zoned that way.
Okay, so it would keep the same zoning it has now?
Yes. Well, this is making a provision to allow that zoning to be done somewhere within the city or in a planned area for the city, but it doesn't automatically change the zoning of the land.
I don't understand.
Well, okay, it would just, and I guess you referred to, I think, LU21, it talks about mixed uses, right? I believe that's right.
Revised zoning and subdivision ordinances to accommodate a wider variety of housing types.
Right. So it would come up with a new housing type, and I don't even know what that would be right now, but it could be mixed use 1.
Whatever it would be, the council would have to adopt it by ordinance.
Right. But it wouldn't actually rezone the land. It would put a new category in the subdivision and put it in the zoning ordinance, in the zoning section of our code. But it wouldn't change a legal description on the ground anywhere. It would make a provision for that to happen.
Okay, make a provision, so if the developer did come in and say, I want to change it to that,
yes,
it would be in line with what he's wanting to do.
Right.
Maybe before it wasn't. Is that correct?
Could be, yes.
Okay.
Yes, that would still be
I guess I still have concerns about that, so.
I mean, but you're going to see that, always. The council. It's not an automatic change for that developer. It's going to go to the planning commission, it's going to come to the council. Okay.
Particularly mixed uses in a planned development like that also require, there are more stringent review by the planning commission anyway for uses, those uses, how they're laid out and that sort of thing. And the city council actually has some role in the review of that as well.
But if we do make those changes, would it be more apt to where we would be more, I guess, inclined or pressured to go ahead and make that zoning change since it's been allowed by us?
Well,
you know what I'm saying?
I do, and then that's always a possibility. But you've got to have a provision in your code to allow something like that to happen for a developer to even consider it. I guess that's what I'm saying. I mean, you just like you did, and I'll just pick something. Okay, we don't allow commercial development in Maumelle, let's say. We didn't allow it at all. You'd have to somehow make changes in your zoning rules to allow commercial development. You'd have to put them in there. So, and maybe Mr. Roberts or Ms. Luther can interject here, but typically what you're going to do is you've got to put a provision in there that allows the type of development that would allow for commercial on the bottom and residential on the second and third floors. And so it wouldn't actually change the zoning of the land, and basically it wouldn't even say where it's going to occur at. Then the land use plan could say where that's going to occur at, along with the strategic plan that's been adopted. But if you adopt the plan, you're going to have to make some changes to the ordinances, the zoning ordinances and the subdivision ordinances.
I think my biggest concern is that we do something without knowing how the third entrance is going to come out. I would hate to allow anything that would allow more high-density housing in certain areas that might cause more trouble on the boulevard. And if we get the third entrance, a lot of those worries go away. But I'm just a little worried about trying to address this land use and zoning issue at all until we know exactly how that third entrance comes in.
Okay.
That's where I'm coming from.
And you can adopt the plan, and you don't have to change the ordinances right now either. You could wait. I mean, it doesn't follow the plan, but that's what you can do, because one of the things is it says that's one of the changes in the near term. Now, that's up to 3 years, and we might know more about the third interchange in 3 years also.
I was just going to reiterate what Mike said, and that is this LU 2.1 and 2.2 refer to updating the code, not changing a zoning map. And so what that says, and it doesn't specify specifically what changes there are, but the policy is that you consider a variety of options, that you expand what's currently allowed under that current zoning. But those two policies do not specify height, density, anything like that at this time. That's something that would then come back before the planning commission.
Alderman Norris?
My first question is a little bit rhetorical, maybe. This resolution does not bind anyone to do anything. Is that correct? I mean, let me rephrase that. It seems like what it is we're putting into effect sort of a guideline to go by. But by voting on this, we're not enacting anything, or am I misunderstanding?
Well, no.
Other than enacting the guideline.
You're putting a map together.
Okay.
This is a map. We're adopting the map, but it's not a binding map. But hopefully, we will use it to move Maumelle forward.
Okay.
Hence the name. But the thing is to try to set a roadmap, and then we're gonna have to take all kinds of actions to implement this plan fully. This council, this government, this city would have to implement a lot of things to make it move forward in the exact fashion that is. But no, there's not one single thing. By adopting this resolution, do you change anything in the code? So if it says we're going to, or the budget, if it says we're going to build a gateway at every entrance into Maumelle, that doesn't get a single gateway built. It's going to require money appropriated by this body in order to do that.
Okay. That was a much smarter way of saying what I was trying to get at.
Alderman Kelly?
Okay, I understand this document is a guidance document. Okay? My concern is if we adopt this, we spend a lot of money for this, is I want to understand from a council perspective that we get feedback periodically from the city and the department heads on what they're doing and what areas they can implement. Now, I understand the resolution, we're just adopting the guidance, but I think at some point we're going to have to formalize how that process works. Because the last thing I want is this to be shelved, and in 5 years from now we have another study.
And that's the goal. The goal is that the living document, it doesn't get put on a shelf. It gets looked at, it gets monitored, and there should be a semi-annual report, I guess, basically, or better than that even, of what's being implemented. There's been some suggestions made that we're mulling over to how the best way to implement everything and what, how to move forward too. So that's being discussed also. But yeah, I mean, if we put it on a shelf and don't look at it for 5 years, then we've wasted our money. That's exactly right.
Mayor, I make a suggestion. We did a master plan in Little Rock for community, and they kept their steering committee together, and the steering committee was the champion of that, and they just kept monitoring. So you've got a steering committee in place. You might have them be kind of the watchdogs, or maybe a subcommittee of that steering committee. Okay.
Alderman Lewis?
I think Alderman Kelly addressed my question. Thank you.
Okay. Alderman Hope?
When you were here last time, you mentioned that you could provide us with a new matrix that had the near-term stuff, midterm. Have you done that?
Do you have copies? As I say, we're providing the digital file, and that can be sorted any way. We can sort it by the term, we can sort it by the element, we can sort it by, each one of those policies is also covered.
But is it something that you can send to the council members and we can?
Absolutely. We can give you the digital version if we sort it anyway, or we can...
You can just sort it for us. It's fine with me. I just like to have the...
It'll look...
Yeah, it'll look just like this. It'll just say near term.
Just look on the right column and you'll see the different terms.
That's exactly what I'm looking for. Thank you.
You're welcome. Alderman Mosley?
I guess also, again, there's so many great ideas in this thing, and I really like them. I'm weak in the zoning and land use and all that because I'm a new alderman, and that's a lot of my discomfort. But I would like to kind of get Jim Nary's take, our city planner, on the whole process and whether he thinks maybe we could benefit by a traffic study before we really kick it off, or what he thinks.
Jim Nary, Director of Planning and Zoning, and I've been on the steering committee since this process kicked off. Overall, I think it's a good plan. There are some things that I agree with wholeheartedly. There's other things I have some reservations about, honestly. But it is, as the mayor said, it's a roadmap, and one thing that you have to consider, Alderman Mosley, and the rest of you all, on this map, some of these roads, as time goes by, will sail right through. Some of these roads will be closed completely. Some of these roads will be under construction for a while. In other words, some of the aspects of this plan will come to you, I'm sure, just as you see them written in this document. Others will be amended somewhat by the time that you get them, and you may do the same to them yourself. Others you may decide you do not want to implement at all. But through input from some of the public, most of you all, some of staff, and with the help of Craft and Toll, this is probably about as good a planning document for Maumelle at this stage in the city's history as you're probably going to get for your buck. If you look at the land use map that's inside this document, it's not a whole lot different than what we have right now. Not at all. I mean, you put a couple of gateway destination centers on it, but other than that, it's about what we have going right now. And I heard what you were saying, Alderman Mosley, about if we change this, does this change the zoning of a particular property? No, just as the mayor said, it doesn't. For instance, in some of the changes that may or may not occur to some of our zoning districts with styles of housing, one thing that is suggested in this document is cluster housing. Well, a change to that would be, where are we going to include cluster housing? Are we going to put that in the PRD zoning district? We're going to put that in R1 zoning district? Things of that nature. But if you look at the 5 steps of implementation, I know that was one of the things that you were interested in. One of the things that was suggested, you're considering it right now, our new extraterritorial jurisdiction map, right off the bat. There's another good idea in implementation considering mixed use and multiple use. We have 2 what is called planned unit developments, or PUDs. Those 2 are PRD, Planned Residential District, PCD, Planned Commercial District. And I've thought for a long time both needed a major overhaul. Neither does really what they're supposed to do. So that is something definitely that we'll be looking at immediately. You mentioned, do I think a traffic study is important now to see what these purported changes, how that may or may not affect traffic on the boulevard and life as you know it in Maumelle? I think it'd be strictly hypothetical, Alderman Mosley. There's too many unknowns out there at this point, I think, to get an accurate reading on how that would overall affect traffic on the boulevard and what comes out of it, third entries being one. None of us know exactly when that's going to be completed. That will have a major impact, but there is no way we can gauge that now. Someone may come tomorrow and decide to develop the rest of Track D. It might happen in the morning. Who knows? That would have a major impact. We have 250 acres and about of residential up off Odom and 11 of light commercial. Who knows what's going to happen with that? All of that has a large effect. The ordinances that govern those types of developments over the next few months, over the next few years, they will be changing to some degree. That's very hard to take into account, to do a study on a study to see if this study will work, if you follow what I'm saying. That is strictly my opinion.
Well said. No kidding. Very well said.
Did that answer your question?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And even this plan adds new roadways. I mean, if you remember, we talked about the north-south arterials and some things like that. So I think, you know, we'd be trying to say, well, this road will carry this much traffic when it's not even there, and it may be 5 years down the road, 10 years down the road, or something like that. So, I mean, I think, and not to make light of it, I think that is something we need to look at more and one of the things is annexation is really key on this council's mind right now too. That's things we've got to look at, is physical impacts of annexing areas and how does it affect things and all that. So I think hopefully this opened all of our eyes to when we look at a proposed development or a proposed annexation or something, what effect does it have on tax dollars, you know, as far as what is it going to cost us services, extra services, or is it going to provide revenue for the city? Also, what's the impact on traffic? What's the impact on just our city services that we provide? I mean, does it mean we have to open up another sanitation route and things like that? So I think it gets us all to asking those questions that we go through and say, yeah, this could have an effect on this area, so it's negative there, but the other two are positive, or you know, something to that effect, so that you're weighing and balancing everything. So that's what I hope it does, is opens all of our minds and gives us a fresh look to look at some of these things now, and not just because that land's always been zoned R2 or it's always been zoned R1. That's what it needs to stay. Hopefully it'll get us thinking outside the box a little bit. Alderman Norris?
I just want to say this one more time, I guess, for the record, is this is a guidance document, and I know someone's going to come up to me at some point in time and say, oh, we've got it, we have to pass this, or we have to do this because it's in the plan, or we can't pass this, or we can't do that because it's not in the plan. And so I just want to say it is a guidance document, and it may not, we may all come and go, and someone down the road will be saying that, I can guarantee you. But all in all, I think this is brilliant. I question why I went to law school. I should have done what y'all did. It's much more interesting. So, thank you very much. You did a great job.
Make a motion we approve Resolution 2013-38.
Second.
It's been motioned second to approve Resolution number 2013-38. Is there any discussion on that motion? Alderman Mosley?
I was going to say, it's a tough decision for me, but I worry about the same thing Alderman Norris does. I worry that at some point I'm going to say, hey, somebody's going to say, hey, you've got to do this because you voted for the plan. And but it's a really tough decision. And again, it's a great document, wonderful ideas, and make Maumelle a great place.
Thank you, Alderman Mosley. Is there any other discussion? Not all those in favor of approving resolution number 2013-38, adopting a strategic plan, please signify by saying yes.
Yes.
Yes. Any opposed, say no.
Say no.
Motion passes. I do want to thank Crafton Tull, Miss Julie Luther, and Mr. Dave Roberts, and Jerry Kelso sitting in the back of the room back there. But their company, along with Ann Ricker from Denver, were very, great in this process, and couldn't have done it without them. And we did pay them, that is correct. But I guarantee you that if you asked them, it probably wasn't enough at times, some of the meetings they were managing and all that. But we also appreciate our entire steering committee that was a part of it. We appreciate everybody, because we were asking people that work for a living to come out in the middle of the day, and the only concession they got was a free lunch usually. So they would spend 2 and 3 hours at some of those meetings, and so they were saying there's no such thing as a free lunch because they were giving up their own time. But we do appreciate the citizens that were involved in that, along with city staff that was involved in that. So we appreciate the effort of this group of people, and along with the city. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next item is under new business, and it's the first reading of ordinance number 829 regarding golf cart operation. Mr. Clerk, if you'd read that by title only.
An ordinance of the City Council of the City of Maumelle, County of Pulaski, State of Arkansas, an ordinance to be entitled Ordinance Number 829, an ordinance of the City of Maumelle, Arkansas, amending the Maumelle City Code regarding the operation of golf carts on city streets and for other purposes.
Okay. There's no action required on this tonight. It's the first reading, and I do need to mention that I left off a citizen to make a comment on that last item, too. And I apologize, Mr. Arnold. I had it down to do it and forgot all about it. As soon as we finish this item, I'll let you speak. It may be too late, but yeah, I'm sorry. Okay. and this was brought forth by Alderman Johnson. This ordinance was basically there's been a change in state statute that allowed for golf carts to operate on streets as long as the city adopted a local ordinance, I guess. Is that correct, Madam
That's
City?
correct. That's long been the law. The change in the law was just to strike that language which said that golf carts could only be operated to and from the golf course to the person's home and from the golf course. So that's all that this does, is to clarify a couple of things, who is the owner, and to strike that language from our ordinance as well.
Alderman Mosley?
Yeah, there's a mention of somebody needs to be 16 years old. Is that not a change?
No, that's not a change.
That was already in there?
Yes, sir.
It was added that his or her immediate family members over the age of 16, I think, had been added in two places, but
the requirement that they be 16 has long been there. It was added. The previous ordinance only said the owner, and later in the ordinance, it did never define the owner as an individual, so that was added to help define the owner as the owner's family. But later in the ordinance or in the code, if you look at the code under D, it says that a person must have a license to operate a vehicle and be 16. Currently.
That's already current.
That's currently
in there.
Yes. I guess I was just trying to figure out why we're really making the changes. Is it something that we need to do to get consistent with state law?
No.
It was sponsored by Alderman Johnson, and to make sure he had presented it to me earlier. I didn't show him this change before we put it on the agenda, but this is actually exactly how it was presented by someone else. So this is a change in the state law, and whether or not the council chooses to make that change, that's your decision.
It used to be only to and from the golf course, so now someone could use this golf cart to go to Kroger.
Correct.
Okay. So that's the difference. Go ahead, Alderman Johnson.
I believe also that there are a lot of people in Maumelle had really got that original ordinance or by the state set in, but more important than that, I guess the one person I'm going to call on, because it's very important to me that Slam Williams doesn't see a problem, and I would like to call on him, if he doesn't want to do it tonight, maybe one of the next two nights, to say if he thinks golf carts would be a problem and everything like that. They're on the streets right now, and everything like that. But I don't know if it caused the police any problem, then I certainly would withdraw it.
I'm certainly in favor of the golf carts. I think that adds to the personality of Maumelle.
Alderman Saunders?
Thank you, Mayor. I have two items. The first is probably a matter of correction in the wording here. I noticed that the second whereas at the beginning of this, it says, quote, who are going to or from the golf course to their home. And then we struck out that same language later on in item D.
No, that's correct. The current code does allow usage of a golf cart outside the boundaries of the golf courses, but limits the same to certain persons who are going to or from. That's correct. That's what the current code allows. And then the next paragraph tells you that the council, if adopted, the council wishes to expand that.
Oh, I'm with you. Okay. Okay, you caught me being me.
That's okay. I certainly definitely make a lot of mistakes, so I don't mind taking a look at that.
If you never make a mistake, you're probably not doing it. I do have a problem, or as Alderman Mosley says, I have heartburn with one of these items on this. Everything else I'm okay with. It says in item F that golf carts operated on city streets must be equipped with working headlights and taillights. I do have a problem with that. First of all, I'll say, if it's dusk or after dark, certainly, no question there. But if I'm going to play golf at 10 o'clock in the morning on a bright sunny day in the middle of summer, why do I have to have headlights and taillights? Second of all, I would hold, I haven't taken the census, but I would hold that there's a lot of people in this town right now that already have paid-for golf carts that don't have headlights and taillights, and we're effectively taking them out of it. Other than that, I'm all for this.
I think our police chief is with us.
Let's hear everybody's, and then we'll let you go, Chief. All right. Alderman Anderson?
Well, my concern kind of goes along with Alderman Saunders in that I didn't understand why it was necessary to operate the golf carts after dark, but it kind of answered my question in that if you're at someone's house and it becomes dusk, then you need to get home. You know, it's dark, you can't just abandon. So I kind of answered my own question.
Okay. All right, Chief. I don't have any more lights on, so you
Mayor,
can add.
and I'm really not prepared to talk a lot about the police department, in my opinion, on the totality of this. Basically, what you're talking about is turning Maumelle into a golf cart community. There are other golf cart communities. I haven't researched any of them, so I don't know. I can't put percentages on the hazards if injury accidents went up, if injury accidents went down. So I don't know. So I would just be winging it, and I don't want to do that. But the one thing I did want to address is the lights and tail lights on a golf cart. A lot of golfers leave the golf course when it starts raining. And if you put golf carts on the street with it raining, then you're probably in violation of state law. And B, that's an extremely dangerous situation. Golf carts, one of my biggest concerns just off the cuff is their visibility. And I wouldn't want to do anything that would diminish that visibility. So that right there, I think, is a real good cause. And I got to tell you, because I play a little golf, bad golf, I do watch a lot of carts. And I think most of the golf carts that leave the golf course that are owned by individuals seem to have headlights and taillights on. I think if you go and buy one as a private operator, that you buy one with headlights and taillights on, because you know you're going to be driving back. But I would encourage you at least that part to keep the headlights and taillights on.
Go ahead.
Well, I'm all into compromising, and I agree with you. I hadn't thought about the rain issue. And we do that with our automobile.
Yes.
It's a matter of public safety. So I would adhere to that. Another natural argument to this is somebody's going to have to make a decision whether it's dusk or dark. But our law enforcement officers do that every day. They make decisions.
And we've done that for years for driving with headlights on. So that's it, 30 minutes before and 30 minutes after.
But I am still concerned about, I just sold my golf cart here about 3 years ago, but it didn't have headlights or taillights on. And I'm still concerned that even if it's not half the golf carts in Maumelle, even if it's 5 or 10%, is it fair to those people to say, boom, we passed an ordinance and now you can't use them? So that's kind of where I'm coming from.
Alderman Lewis.
Chief, I want to catch you in a hypothetical here. Now, granted, as much as we would like for you to remain police chief for indefinite amount of time, I want to ask you if we pass this, and let's say it's a nice, pretty sunny day, 2 p.m. in the afternoon, and someone has a pre-circa 1990 golf cart that doesn't have lights, is it possible that you might really focus in on that, or is that one of those things that's sort of left to sometimes the subjectiveness of the fellow officer?
Well, I think discretion and compromise are good words. I really do. I like the fact that we give our officers discretion in certain circumstances. And I can see a situation where if the situation is, like you said, a pretty day, there's no visibility problems, and the guy's going from A to B, how important is it? And the question then becomes, do we have bigger additional signs? But also the question becomes, can I mandate that we don't do that? So there's no way I can tell everybody that 100% of the time we won't be enforcing that. Because I would be wrong, somebody would, and then I would have not spoken accurately up here, so I don't want to do that. But I could see where that would not be an incredibly high priority. And I can see where I think other councils in the past have placed priorities on certain city ordinances just by their resolutions. So I could see maybe something, maybe that's not as big a deal as we thought. So, yes, sir.
last thing I'll say, Mr. Mayor, the only reason I asked Chief Williams that is not to play down a very valid question which you have, but maybe to ease some anxiety you might have over that point.
While we're talking about that, I do have some concerns about it also. I mean, I don't want to go into a lot of them, but I do have concerns because golf carts don't have seat belts. If they do get in an accident, there's a good chance that the occupants are going to be thrown from that vehicle. Also, most of them don't have insurance. So if they strike another vehicle while they're on that roadway, who's responsible for the damages? Who's going to pay for the damages? And then it doesn't limit the number of riders. And I know that makes pretty common sense that, well, you've got the seat that fits 2 people, and there only ought to be 2 people on there, but there's people riding on the back of them where golf bags should be and other things like that. And so, I mean, there's some issues that I think with safety. And the other thing, and Chief can correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think we can stop someone just because we think they're under 16. They have to be doing a moving violation to give our officers a reason to pull them over. So we can't, and then we got in this same argument with the mopeds, if I remember right. We can't just make a stop to see if that juvenile is 16 and has a valid license. So, you know,
I don't see where we're on real solid footing doing that. Obviously, if it's somebody that is clearly not 16, then we could take an enforcement action there. But that's oftentimes just not the case. We just don't know, and stopping people because we don't know is inappropriate.
And we had a major problem with mopeds for a while. It seems to have slowed way down, and I think it's because the parents started realizing they can be dangerous. You know, you're buying something that can't make speeds over 30 miles an hour, but they're also in the same roadway with a vehicle that weighs 4,000 or 5,000 pounds. And we've had I think, a large reduction in the number of mopeds running around Maumelle. We did some safety classes and things like that. I think some of that had something to do with it, but I think it's just they realized that just because it's easy for their child to get from point A to point B doesn't mean they should always do it and buy the moped. And that's my concern about these golf carts is some parents will just take the golf cart and run down to your little friend's house because you can, and maybe, you know, that's not the best route. But that's my 2 cents on it. Alderman Kelly?
Thank you, Mayor. To echo you, my 2 cents is that any time we pass an ordinance, we should err on the side of public safety. It's not about convenience. We put these are motor vehicles on the highway that pose a huge hazard to especially the operators of those golf carts. And I share the same concern you do, and I think any kind of public safety part of the ordinance needs to stay in there. Lights need to stay. Thank you.
Alderman Anderson?
I just have a couple questions. Alderman Kelly stated the highway, but it's just for city streets. Am I correct? It's not. You won't be able to operate on.
No, you won't be able to operate on Maumelle Boulevard, but they will be able to operate on Odom, and Club Manor, Country Club Parkway. I mean, any other city street. There just won't be the ability to cross or be on Maumelle Boulevard.
And also, is it a state requirement that they have to have a valid driver's license with them while they're operating that? Or is that something that needs to be addressed within our...
Or ours says they must have in their possession a valid operator's license. Ours currently says that.
Okay.
Yeah, ours currently says that. Under item D, it's the last sentence under item D. And it's not underlined or anything like that because it's currently in the provisions that allow the golfers to use it to and from the golf.
Right, that's been a Maumelle requirement. I'm without doing a little research, I couldn't tell you offhand whether it's state requirement as well.
As long as it's addressed, I think that would be the main thing, just to give the ability for the law enforcement officers to verify if they are in a moving violation or whatever reason that they're being pulled over. I just missed that. I apologize.
It's okay.
Alderman Lewis?
Madam City Attorney, can we add language that would restrict the number of passengers to a certain number?
Yes.
And would that be something we need to make in the form of a motion, or?
Yes.
Okay. I make a motion that we do add language relevant to limiting the number of occupants of a golf cart in transit to 2 passengers.
The driver and 2 passengers, for clarification, the driver and 2 passengers, which would be a total of 3 people?
Yes.
Okay.
would like to make a point on that. There are golf carts that have 2 seats, and then they don't have a pouch for the golf clubs, and they have 2 seats. There's one in our neighborhood that has 4 seats. I wish I had it because I had to stand on the back before. Guilty.
I really like sitting next to you.
Okay, I have a motion to amend the ordinance to limit it to 2 passengers, meaning a total of 3 with the driver and 2 passengers. Do I hear a second? Motion fails for lack of a second. Alderman Hope?
I was just going to say mine will have 4 seats, and so I didn't want to limit it.
I think it's good tomorrow.
Okay, as of right now, this will be on second reading at the next meeting, and Chief Williams will be here to speak on some matters to that also. Alderman Johnson?
Might follow up with what Alderman Hoke said to the extent that, hey, one of these days we may be driving around in 4 seats on a golf cart, not just to play golf, but, you know, and everything like that. You might be surprised, and for some elderly people, it might be a better way to go to the store.
Alderman Mosley?
Actually, some cars are getting small enough that, I've said the other day, I think a golf cart's bigger than some of them.
They're more comfortable.
Alderman Saunders?
Thank you, Mayor. Okay, it's dumb question time. Is it really a golf cart if it doesn't have a pouch for your golf club? Just a thought. I mean, if that's the case, then we've got other kinds of vehicles now that might be on the road and call it a golf cart.
Well, it's one of those things, I think you know what it is when you see it.
Good comment. It resembles a golf cart.
All right, if that's all on that ordinance, if I have no other comments, I do need to go back, and I apologize again to Mr. Arnold. I jumped over him. I had his card laying right here. So, Mr. Arnold, we'd love to hear from you on the strategic plan. And I don't think you're going to...
so happy you got adopted, you forgot.
Yeah.
And I took Bill Arnold, 22 River Place. Took some of my stuff away because I was going to ask you guys to adopt it.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
But that's not my... I'm up here with some other things. Since you put it online, I spent a lot of time looking at it. And I have some comments about it. And then I have some information for you. It's interesting. It's a very good document. It has awful lot of information in it. There are the first 4 chapters are background. Appendices A to F are background and informational. Chapters 5 through 11 are 7 sub-implementation plans. It depends on whether it's land use, community character, sustainability, transportation, conservation, recreation. So there are 7 sub-plans in this that have to be implemented. Appendix G is, from the consultants, they have taken those 7 implementation plans and put everything that's outlined as a goal or policy into an outline, put cross-references to all the other of them, and then put their timelines in. I thought their timelines were different because there's 218 different, this is, I'm anal, if you haven't noticed. There are 218 distinct elements in that plan as it exists today. There would be about 600 if I was doing it. There's 110 near term that have to be done in the next 3 years, 67 between 3 and 7, 21 are long term, and 22 are ongoing. So the meat of of this strategic plan is done within 3 years. The comments that I've got took 2 years to develop it, takes 25 years to implement it. So what happens from today for the next 25 years is extremely important. You must have a repeatable process in place so the next city council can take this plan and operate it like it should be. I spent 2 weeks, it's been 10 years since I've worked on plans and implementation, so I had to go back. I searched the web, I looked at city plans, who's been successful, who hasn't, I looked at implementation plans, what's been done, new tools, old tools, what's been done in the past. I'm going to pass out 2 things, and I'd like you guys to pass them out so you can look at them. One's a process, and one's what I call an implementation plan, which is an expanded implementation matrix from the plan. And I want to talk about the process first, since you guys were talking so much about process. But I'll wait till all you done. If you'll notice, there's probably staples in the corner, staple marks in the corners of the process, because this morning I stapled these together so I could hand them out together. I looked again at the implementation matrix, and I realized I made a mistake, so I had to do them all over again this morning. So I've been working, this process is an iteration, there's about 8 iterations in this, because I do it, set it down, look at it, rechange it. What I want you to look at in this plan is you've already gone through the adoption. Originally I had to abandon the plan if you didn't adopt it. You need to form a strategic plan committee. And whatever you call it, this you can call it what you'd like. It should be 7 to 11 people. Anytime you have a working group, they usually use the rule of 7. 7 is the most effective. Every person you add reduces the efficiency of it. If you get above 11, you start getting extremely inefficient and unable to perform tasks. And that's from group dynamics. The first step that strategic planning committee should take is to validate the implementation strategies, which are the Appendix G. And then after they've taken and looked at that, and the reason they need to do that is because that implementation matrix is not written in executable terms. If you're an implementer, it needs to be objective, and it needs to be measurable, and it needs to have a timeline in it. If you look at the bottom of the sheet that you've got on where it talks about the SMART criteria, anytime you have an implementation objective, it should be specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. So each of the elements in there should be looked at to see whether they fit those criteria to be executable in an implementation plan. And then constructing the implementation plan, which this is an example of, this is my most humble but nevertheless correct opinion of what I think you should use. But I have no authorship on this. What I'm trying to do is give you an outline of what it should look like. The strategic planning committee should build their own. If you want to look at the matrix right now, what I did with the matrix is I pulled out 2 of the goals because I wanted to put what we're considering the Vaughn Task Force in there. So in fact, your comment was anything could go in this plan. I challenge you to come up with a project that we can't fit into this plan somewhere, because this plan is so comprehensive, you can fit almost any project we'll come up with into it. What I did when I made this, I added some things to it. The time frame with the big X's are exactly as the consultants made the time frame. I put some importance, priority, who's the action, and project tracking in there to make this a documentation of how you're implementing. If you look at the OSR 3, there's an active recreation is 3.1, and 3.1A is the opportunities for parks, present neighborhood, and community parks, and that is it's written in the document. I added 3.1.A.1 to provide active recreational opportunities in community parks. That's why there's nothing in the time frame. So it's an executable objective. And then underneath that, you can put in the build aquatic center, the community center, because that falls underneath a community park. The softball center fell out the same way, and then TR1, what fell out is constructing a 1 pedestrian tunnel over Commerce Boulevard intersection. And if it's got a check mark in it, that's the time frame that the board is looking at, that the task board is looking at, that project was brought forward. What I recommend that the strategic plan committee does is give each of those 7 plans to the city department that's responsible for it, and then facilitate them going through there to make sure that what they're going to do is executable. Some of the things are going to be stay as plans, because they're plans for the long term. If there's something that needs to be done, it needs to be executable, so it use a smart criteria for that. The other thing, while you're looking at this, if you don't have all the large maps that the consultants used for doing all of the meetings that they had, get them from them, because they're going to be useful in doing this. And they already said they'd give you the, because I don't want to have to ever retype this again. So if they give you the executable file, then you can build a sheet like this without having to retype all of it, except the columns that you put in. So my recommendation to you is document the process. What is the process? I gave you a process as an example. Build a process, put it in place, and then the next city council that comes after you guys will be able to use that same process in place, so you'll get repeatable, executable implementation plans. The other thing I want to point out before I leave is in the implementation plan, where the constructed implementation plan comes back to the city council, that's where you get your final approval before anything gets done. It's also where you do your financial planning and project budgets. To do this cycle properly, this plan should be completed at that step, constructing implementation plan, and to you guys before you start your budgets. You're already starting your budgets now, which means 2015 is when you should target this stuff coming to you guys to be budgeted for. Now, there's typically things that come up outside of that, but what I'm looking at is a strategic plan process where you continue this thing in place. You either approve it or disapprove it. If you approve it, then it gets executed by the city departments. The progress gets documented, quarterly progress to you guys, and then you update the strategic plan by the strategic plan committee. Annual updates goes back to the strategic plan, which comes back to you guys for review, and it goes through the cycle. This is an annual cycle. And you'll have, when you finish, if it's properly done, the document that you have, that the mayor has, that Maumelle forward, will become a reference document, and this will be your implementation plan. And this is something that's easier to look at and see what's going on than trying to. If you have a question about what's in here, you can go back and see what the document says about it. But this is your implementation.
Wow. I think you earned every bit of your money on this. Alderman Moses, second.
We keep a steering committee in place. He needs to be added.
Yes. Well, the steering committee you have right now is too big. It's too big. You've got 20-some members in the steering committee. Wait a minute. That's non-functional for getting that to work there. But yeah.
An implementation committee is what?
Yeah. And the strategic plan committee is somebody that you give the strategic plan to and say, this is your baby, you nurse it, you bring it back to us, and you keep it up to date every year. That's why you want somebody with a group of about 7 people.
Alderman Johnson?
I'd just like to thank you for all the work and time you spent on this. This is incredible.
When you're retired and you don't have anything else to do, it gives you something to do.
I am retired.
And again, I apologize for you not getting to do that when we were doing the actual strategic plan, Mr. Arnold.
That's fine.
Wow.
Next item is resolution number 2013-39, amending the 2013 general fund budget. Mr. Clerk, if you read that by title only.
Resolution of the City Council of the City of Maumelle, Pulaski County, Arkansas, resolution number 2013-39, a resolution to amend the 2013 general fund budget.
This is the proposal to do audio-visual for the council chambers, and Mr. Clerk took bids on this item, and the low bid was received, and that's the amount that we're asking for now. And also, and you see here, we've also, State Representative Mark Lowry, who's still here tonight, has offered to fund this with GIF grant funds if they become available. I know it's in the process of getting approved, so, yeah. And if you got any questions, Mr. Clausen can address them. The provider of the equipment is here also tonight. Alderman Norris.
First of all, I'd like to thank both the city clerk and Representative Lowry for the work that's gone into this. I know the city clerk has, city clerk treasurer, I believe, has done a lot of work preparing this, and then I want to thank Representative Lowry for working on getting funding for this. I'd like to make a motion that we pass Resolution 2013-39.
Okay, it's been motion second that the council approve Resolution 2013-39, amending the 2013 general fund budget. Is there a discussion on that motion? And I've got lights on. Alderman Hogue.
Yes, I just, as you know, I have not been a proponent of this. However, it's kind of hard to oppose free. So I probably will be voting for it. But I was wondering if maybe you could just kind of explain to us how this is going to work.
How what is going to work?
Well, I know that Alderman Lewis has been doing the audio portion of our meetings, and I assume that that will continue to be the audio portion. How is the video portion going to connect with the audio? And I understand it's not going to be live streaming, so where is it going to be, and how will people go about accessing it? Just how, in general, it's going to work.
Yes, ma'am. There's still a few details left to work out as far as where it will be posted on the city's website. I mean, that's going to be the next piece of the puzzle. We've explored that a little bit and have the capability of doing so. But the video piece will have video and audio. Mr. Martin is here this evening. Maybe he can give just a very brief overview of what's going to be put in place.
Good evening, City Council and Mayor. The audio video system, what we're going to do is put together more of an automated system, so not one person has to run it. Mr. Clausen will have a small touch panel. He'll be able to turn the system on. The system will automatically start recording audio and video, and then we'll be able to take that, put it in a format with no conversion. I know we have spoke about that. There'll be no conversion. It'll be ready to go to the web, so it'll be in a friendly format for that. And it should be, should be pretty simple to use. We worked really hard on a system that auto mixes and the volumes, they automatically adjust depending on the speaker. And so we've implemented this at several city councils and have been successful in doing that. So same type of system.
And so it's going to be all audio and video. It's all going to be together. You're not going to use.
No, you can still. Right now, you currently have an audio recorder, and that can still be taken and used how it needs to be used. But you also have another piece that has the video and audio together, and that'll be for web purposes.
Okay.
And like Mr. Clausen said, we've explored some websites that you may upload to. We're just going to give you that file where you can take it and upload it.
And the camera will be stationary, or will you also be able to record the audience when they're speaking? Yeah,
the camera is a pan-tilt zoom, so it does have the ability to move. Once we get in and start installing, we are going to have to take a look at the room and see the best place to put the camera. We cannot, probably get the whole gamut of the room, but we'll be able to get most of it. And the way the touch panel will work is we'll give Mr. Clausen or whoever's assigned to run it, we'll give presets, predetermined camera locations.
Okay.
So you'll hit the council, audience, etc., etc. So that way he's not fiddling around. Go to the left a little bit. There'll be predetermined locations.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yep. Thank you.
And Alderman Lewis can continue to do his audio, but his audio will not be integrated into that audio at all.
All right. I hadn't originally understood that it was. So.
And was still separate from the audio that we're doing even now. It was just the...
Okay. Just curious.
Alderman Mosley?
Yeah, a lot of that was answered through that. I guess the equipment is decided and the provider and all that, so
by competitive bid.
Okay. That's all I've got. Other than yeah, again, thank you everybody that's been involved. Thank you Alderman Norris for plugging away. Thank you City Clerk Clausen. Thank you.
Alderman Lewis?
Mr. Martin may be able to address this. I know he was speaking to the position where it will be able to tilt and pan to. As far as a degree radius, what can you get on that with that equipment?
The camera can do almost 360 degrees.
Okay.
It's just we have to put it in such a fashion that, you know, we can get a wide angle shot or so we generally we won't be able to capture the whole room, but close.
So do you feel confident that Mr. Mayor, of course all the aldermen, and anyone at the lectern could be visible on it?
Yeah, and that's the trick is, you know, if we mount the camera in such a fashion where we can get this, you know, we need to be careful because we want to be able to still get some of the audience, and then maybe the guest speaker that's speaking too. So we just have to kind of, you know, I'm really thinking in this area.
Okay, good.
Over there.
And the audience itself, you know, may not be the biggest thing, but we do have occasions like our last meeting, for example, when the strategic plan principals came and gave their presentation. There was a lot of time there in which people from the lectern were speaking, and it would look kind of bizarre if we just had a camera on us and we're just sort of, you know, observing. The other question I had is, in the implementation of that hardware, is it possible where you could also impose images from the projector onto the video stream? Because sometimes we have charts or graphs or maps that could be advantageous to a viewer.
Yeah, it's possible.
Okay.
Anything's possible. I need to look at. I need to revisit that.
Okay.
But I can let Mr. Clausen know, and he can get that to you.
That would be something good to look for. And then lastly, this may speak more to Clerk Clausen's area. I know we had spoke about possibly using Vimeo as a hosting venue for that site, or for the video files themselves. One thing to be mindful of would be whatever hosting site we use would be something that had some robust analytics, so we could view as to how many viewers we have, and in addition, how long each viewer is. The reason I say that is with the audio that I've been doing, that's one of the things on there is not only can you get number of clicks and people that have listened to it, but it also tells you an average of how many minutes per listener is actually, you know, using that video versus somebody who clicks on it for 20 seconds and says, you know, and then gives up. So that could be something good to also look at.
I would be surprised if they didn't have that.
I would too.
But
I would too.
We'll make sure, and that's the company that our web provider is most familiar with working with. So that's why we started there. But
okay. The last thing I'll mention, you know, there was one thing about this that just always kind of been gnawing at me since the summer, is we had as part of our municipal league summer conference, we went down there, and the League of Cities executive director made a great speech. Clarence Anthony spoke to some of us during a morning session, and he asked the question in the audience. He said, "Who here has videotapes of their, you know, city council meetings? Who does that?" And you know, there were a few hands that went up. And he said, "If you're thinking about doing it, don't." And he mentioned that there were some aspects that, you know, sometimes it becomes stiff and a little bit forced. So that sort of sits there and gnaws at me. And then lastly, Alderman Hogue mentioned very keenly that I've been doing the audio on that, so that kind of gives me a bit of a conflict of interest. I won't continue to do that if we have a quality video service. And Mr. Martin, I have a good feeling that you'll be able to deliver on that. So that being said, I will abstain on this vote just due to conflict of interest, that I have been putting that on there.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Alderman Johnson?
Okay. One thing that's got me a little bit confused here, maybe I'm missing the whole point. How much money are we talking about? We're asking for $14,706. How much is...
every penny.
No, I mean, that's the total of the whole thing, including what...
Yes, sir.
Wow. In other words, what the representative is going to give us?
You know, Representative Lowry may be able to speak to the timetable where we are in that approval process. But his commitment was to pay for the entire...
The total cost of the project is $14,706 totally.
Correct.
Okay. And we might get reimbursed from him.
Well, from the state GIF funds, yes.
Yes, Mark Lowry, 229 Summit Valley Circle. I'd been following the debate on the issue when it came up earlier, and Alderman Norris had told me about it. We do have GIF grants available where we can make requests for projects that we think are worthy, and I think, of course, with all the discussion about accountability and transparency, I felt like this was something that would certainly fit well within the guidelines that we have for making recommendations. And City Clerk Clausen met with me some time back with about some of the specs that he had, and I think he did a very good job in terms of bringing it. There are some bells and whistles that could be added to it, obviously. I know one of the things we discussed was hopefully that the equipment could be used in an upgradable situation if you were able to expand the city council chamber, that you're not having to start over from scratch, and I think that was done. I think the equipment probably is in that kind of a situation. But where we are in the process, and also would want to commend City Clerk Clausen of how quickly he filled out the grant application. I contacted Central Arkansas Planning, which is the entity that the grant monies go through, gave them the contact person. They contacted Joshua Clausen, and I believe he filled out the application within the same day. They are presenting that this week to their multi-county board made up of mayors and quorum county officials. I believe it's Thursday, and it is, I've already submitted my letter of recommendation and endorsement of this project, so it will be funded. And I'm available for any questions you might have.
To the full extent that we are showing here?
Yes, yes. I've already received the feedback from Central Arkansas Planning of what the amount was. I had actually written a letter of endorsement for $15,000, so you left some on the table. But anyway, yes, we're covering the entire thing.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Lauer.
We don't.
Okay. Did you have anything to add, Mr. Martin? Wait a minute, okay. All right, I may have one more question.
It's not.
Okay, all right, okay, all right.
Actually,
thank you, Mr. Martin.
I'm going to ask a favor from Alderman Lewis. You just mentioned at the Municipal League there were some issues brought up that were negative so far as recording this. Just so everybody understands some of these things, can you remember and give us some of those things?
Well, I perhaps could, but in this instance I was taking the comments of the guest speaker. I think he was moreover concerned that sometimes within city government there is a certain cavalierness about some of the productions and everything, and that sometimes it's a little hammy, but I think I'm taking away something from one speaker that certainly he didn't bring into it a lot of broad issues, but it was rather poignant that he brought that up, I thought. But I certainly think that if this is the will of the council and something that they view as a good thing, they should go forward with it. The audio recordings, I was able to monitor some of the hits on that. I think that provided a good service for openness and the accountability, I suppose. I think we're, for the most part, fairly accountable. But the individual speaker was making his comments, and what I gleaned from them may be different from the others.
Just curious.
Yes, sir.
Alderman Norris?
If I know who Alderman Lewis is talking about, was it the president of the National League of Cities?
The executive director.
Executive director of the National League of Cities. It's not the municipal league.
No, sir. No, sir.
A little biased there.
Well, you do work for them.
I do work there. Just clarifying. But I just want to point out something else that I was told when I went to the National League of Cities meeting, that first sort of, you're a new alderman, welcome aboard. And the guy whose table I was sitting at was teaching us on all these creative ways that we could sort of avoid FOI by holding meetings far away from the city, therefore, even though it's open to the public, no one will come. So I just caution, and I don't want to slam the National League of Cities because I learned a ton of great stuff while I was there, but just always be cautious about who the speaker is and what their motives are. not just what they say. So.
Sure.
Alderman Hogue?
I will put in a plug for the cameras. At that municipal league meeting, I was sitting next to an alderman whose city had audio video, and he thought that it worked very well. So it's just all subjective. Some people are going to love it, and some people are going to hate it. But I think perhaps the gentleman that we're talking about that was over at the meeting, sometimes you're just looking for a zinger, and maybe that was a zinger.
You mean what he said?
Yes.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
Okay. Perhaps so.
I mean, you know, that's kind of the way I took it.
Okay.
Okay, if there's no more discussion on resolution number 2013-39, all those in favor, please signify by saying yes.
Yes.
Any opposed, say no. Motion passes.
Can I get a roll call on that? I believe.
Sure.
Someone said they were going to abstain.
Yeah. Alderman Mosley?
Yes.
Alderman Saunders?
Yes.
Alderman Kelly?
Yes.
Alderman Anderson?
Yes.
Alderman Lewis?
Abstain.
Okay. Alderman Johnson?
Well, I'm going to abstain too.
Alderman Norris?
Yes.
Alderman Hogue?
Yes.
Motion passes 6-0 to 2, I guess. But actually it's 6-2.
Sounds like a hockey record.
Yeah. Okay. Motion passes. Again, thank you, Representative Lowry, for your help in this matter. Next item is the mayor's comments, and I've got a whole lot on here, and I've added more, so bear with me. First item is the budget calendar that's included in your packet. Our first budget meeting will be October the 29th in the Blue Room at 6 o'clock. I will provide food at that meeting, so for you. Hopefully it's a 2-hour meeting, and it's going to be kind of a budget introduction type deal. Hopefully since we have 4 new aldermen, some of you attended last year, but I think we need to do that to start off with to help, and then the department heads will be coming in the next meeting. The budget has been handed out. You have it at your desk. Do not just automatically fall over and all that. It's a little the revenues are less than the expenditures, I will tell you that, by a significant amount. But, I mean, one of the items in there is a $1 million fire truck. It was appropriated last year. It made it be over that amount also. So when you first see the number, it's like, wow, that's high. I'll also tell you that our health insurance came in at a 29% increase. We're working on that. Do what?
Maybe we could get the governor to give us.
Yeah, give us some money too. We're working on that. We put it in the budget at 20%, but our renewal came in at 29%. So we're working on that, looking at other avenues and doing some other things. So when you look at it, it's like, wow, but it's all in there. There's some staffing in there that's being requested that we're going to have to look at hard by various departments and all that. But it's in there, and I felt like it was best to give it to you in this format, and we'll talk about it. And the first meeting will be probably discussion items of how we move forward from there and all that. And then at the second and third meeting in November, we'll have the department heads come and explain their actual budget and justify their requests to the council. And that's how we'll move forward. And I know Alderman Kelly had a conflict on the 29th, and you've got one also on the 29th. So I think it's better if we go ahead and hold the department heads, since 2 of y'all will go on that night. But the one thing is, not everybody can be there every night, and so. But if you're not able to attend, we'll try to bring you up to speed as quick as we can on something like that. Yes, sir.
Is there a possibility we could call in and maybe set like a conference call?
Sure. We've got a phone back there.
Because I don't have that ability. I just won't physically be.
Yeah. No, we can have a phone. We'll just set you in the corner over there.
You do that anyway.
Do you have an iPhone? Alderman Kelly, do you have an iPhone?
Oh, you can FaceTime.
We can FaceTime. If you get Wi-Fi, we'll have your picture there. I'll bring the iPad and we'll put you on there. There you go.
There you go. Now, wait a minute. Is that a video?
There you go.
All right. Next item is recycling update. I had a meeting with Waste Management last Wednesday. It lasted well over 2 hours. It didn't start out well, but at the end it went real well, I think. And so they're going to be coming back with a proposal and a plan that I hope to bring back to this council. But we're also working on Plan B also on that venture. And so I still think we can have an early next year rollout because we're scaling it back a little bit, not in product, but just in other issues. So, and I think all the council will be happy, but I'd rather not roll it out till I know exactly some specifics. It was all a discussion the other day. But we did have a very good meeting with Waste Management, and like I say, we're working on a Plan B also. We will upgrade the recycling in Maumelle sometime next year. I confidently feel that way. Real quick, the Maumelle Expo recap. If you missed it, the Chamber hosted the Maumelle Expo at the Maumelle Community Center on October the 11th, and it was well attended. Almost every booth but one was full that was there, and as far as vendors in the booths and all that. But the community center was completely full with vendors, and then people coming by. Probably close to 1,000 people came through that day. And we actually and one of the issues they had was with some of the vendors was Conway's Expo was exactly the same day. And you wouldn't think we would overlap with Conway, but we do, as far as some of the vendors and things like that. So that was a little bit of a issue. Boat ramp update. The boat ramp is completed. The courtesy dock is in place. The only thing that is lacking right now is a sign that the Game and Fish is putting up. The posts are up. They just don't have the sign up. And we will be having a dedication with the Arkansas Game and Fish, since they funded the project, within 45 days. And they're going to do the scheduling to make sure that their people can be there. It'll be a weekday, is what they told me. So it'll be some day during the week, and probably during the day to get their people there, is what they said. So as soon as I know that, I'll give you that information so that y'all can come to it. But I think it's going to be a benefit to Maumelle, the boat ramp, and it's another one of those issues. Working with a state government, they provided the funds for it, and they constructed an amenity for the city of Maumelle. And there's also a fence up down there also now to separate the ramp area from the wedding areas. So, yeah. Next items all have to do with Halloween and trick-or-treating and trunk-or-treating. So the first item is a trunk-or-treat at Lake Willistine on October the 26th. You have a flyer in your packet. The hours are from 5 to 7 p.m. on the 26th at Lake Willistine. And then also on the 26th, there's a trunk-or-treat from 5:30 to 7:30 at the community center. So you can start at the community center. You can go to Lake Willistine. You can come back to the community center, looks like, almost. So, or no, you can start at Lake Willistine at 5 and then come to the community center. So, but your kids should be able to get a lot of candy if they want candy. And also the 26th and the 31st, the Maumelle Youth Council will be doing the haunted house at the community center, and so please come out and support that. It raises funds for their trip to Washington, D.C. So we'd appreciate you coming out and bringing your friends to that also. It's pretty scary haunted house most years too. So and then also the fire department will be hosting trick or treat at their facility, station number 2, from 5:30 to 8:30 on Halloween night. So they'll be doing trick-or-treating at Fire Station number 2, which is the one at Millwood and Maumelle Boulevard. Arbor Day celebration will be October the 26th at 10 a.m., so that's this Saturday morning. It'll be at Lake Willistine, so go out and support the tree board. I actually will be out of town. City Clerk Treasurer Clausen has also got a prior engagement, and so Alderman Lewis is going to read the proclamation for us at that event. We sent out a email, and he volunteered to do that, and so we appreciate that, since both of us were out of the city or out of the park. We couldn't be there at the time that they were going to have that. The other thing, today we started asphalt overlays on our city streets. They started on Rolling Oaks today. They've been doing some roto milling, but they actually started the overlays today. So, and the first course that's going down is a shimming or leveling course. So it doesn't look like it's the final surface, and so it looks rough and all that. So they will come back and put a final course over it. So if it doesn't look like it goes all the way to the curb, there's a reason for that. So that's, and people were given notices to not park in the street between certain periods of time to allow to be paved and all that. And everybody complied this morning, so they were able to do their work.
Did you get some calls?
I did get some calls.
I got one.
I did get some calls. I sure did. And so, but it's the same thing we always do.
Mm-hmm.
If you have a lot of rutting, you can't just come in and put a 2-inch overlay. You have to fill in the ruts and then come back and do a second course over the top of it. And so I actually got calls of, what are they doing? And then also got a call thanking us for doing it too from the Rolling Oaks. So, yeah. Did you have something on that, Alderman Moses?
Just a quick question. Is there a general rule of thumb for what an overlay like that costs per quarter mile or mile or something like that?
Well, it's going to depend on the width of the street and all that. So if it's a 27-foot street, it's going to be different than 36. If they do it on a ton basis, I could probably come up with more what tons can cover that area. And it's also, you normally do a 2-inch overlay, and when you do the shim, you're actually doing 2+ overlays, so it runs a little more, and cul-de-sacs add to it. I can come up with that number, but it's going to be it's going to be very subjective.
I just was curious. Some ballpark had no idea how much.
Yeah, $300,000 for what we're doing, but yeah, it adds up quick. Yeah.
About a mile's worth or something.
No, it's more than a mile. That's going to be. I'd be lying. It's all of Blue Mountain, all of Rolling Oaks, or most of Rolling Oaks, and a lot of cul-de-sacs. So yeah.
Well, it sounds cheaper than doing patch systems almost.
Well. Now, the pass system has a huge concrete wall in it, and that's a large part of that price. So, yeah.
Thanks, sir.
And actually, that's new construction versus overlays. So, yeah, there's a big deal difference there, too. And the last thing I need to tell you is I give you with a little bit of sad news, actually. On Friday, I received a letter from Chief Glenn, and he notified me of his intent to retire from the position of fire chief of the city of Maumelle. Says, when I was hired in July 2000, there were specific goals set, and these have been accomplished. It is now time for me to pursue other avenues and feel that the time is right for me to retire. My 13 years with the city has been very rewarding, and I believe that the citizens can be proud of having a fire department second to none. And it goes on to say, please accept this notice of my retirement effective December 31, 2013. And so I've got a statement that I'd like to read, and it says, I want to thank Chief Glenn for his dedicated service to Maumelle for the past 13 years and commend him for the growth that the Maumelle Fire Department has experienced during his time. When Chief Glenn came here, Maumelle had a Department of Public Safety, which has developed into separate police and fire departments under the leadership of Chief Glenn and Chief Williams. The fire department grew from having only one career firefighter on duty to now having 2 separate engine companies housed in 2 different stations with a staffing of up to 8 personnel in each shift. Chief Glenn was instrumental in the design and development of the main fire station and has been involved in the design of the new fire substation. His leadership was evident in our most recent ISO review, as Maumelle maintained an ISO 3 rating in spite of tremendous growth in the city since the last review. I will miss Chief Glenn and wish him the very best in his future endeavors. And so Chief Glenn is here, and I think we could give him a round of applause. Thank you, Chief.
Cannot believe it's been 13 years.
Do what?
I said, I cannot believe he's been here 13 years.
Well, I had hair when I came.
Oh, no.
Would you like to say anything, Chief?
I'll keep my comments under 2 hours.
Okay.
This may be one of my shorter speeches on record. Actually, there are 2 people that I would like to recognize.
both are here tonight, and it's always emotional. I would like to start at the beginning. When David Huseman hired Sam and me to come out here, he beat me here by a week because all he had to do was drive across the river. But shortly thereafter, we encountered the change of government. And my first boss in that change of government was Bert Johnson. I want to thank you for everything you did as the mayor during your tenure. The second person I'd like to recognize is Mayor Watson. I affectionately tell people that when he got elected, I had to fire my boss so he could become my boss, because he was a volunteer on the fire department. But both of you have served the community exceptionally well. Your leadership is recognized and appreciated. Everybody in council, current and previous, have been strong supporters of public safety. We're a growing community. We're a young fire department. We're still trying to figure out about being a fire department some days, but we have good people in the organization doing good things. And so because of that, I've reached a milestone, and I am now going to be quiet because I have nothing else to say other than thank you.
All right. Hate to follow that. Next item is Planning Commission report, and that will be done at the next meeting because we've already done that. Alderman's comments. Alderman Saunders.
Thank you, Mayor. Well, the first thing I want to say is I'm really sad to see Chief Glenn go. He has been quite an asset for our city. He's a personal friend of mine, and it is a loss to us. So, I have two other things. One is I want to remind everybody the Maumelle Players is having a stage play. It's called the Hallelujah Girls, and it's about a group, and I think I heard 7 girls and one of their friends, and it's a group of girls that get together every week. They had a friend that passed away, so now they've got a bucket list and things they got to do, and it's quite a comedy. It's a comedy. It's to be held at the Little Scholars Academy, which is behind the Shell Station at the corner of Counts Massey and the Boulevard. The show is this coming Friday, Saturday night at 7, Sunday afternoon matinee at 3 o'clock, and it will also be the following weekend, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, same times, 7 and 3. The last item that I have, I want to make everybody aware because, well, there's a bond task force meeting tomorrow night here in council chambers. It would be a good meeting for people to go to. The reason I say that is they're going to have a couple of architects come in that have been working on some proposals for an event center for Maumelle. And I was privileged to get to see these the other day, and they're going to do a presentation. And as most people that know me knows, I've been big on an event center for a long time for Maumelle. You know, where we can do garden shows, stage plays, flower shows, wrestling matches, jump shows, whatever. You know, it services a large percentage of our population, okay? They're relatively cheap to build and done properly, and so they pay themselves off quickly, and they become money generators for the city. Plus, they bring people into our town that spend money, okay? So you can tell I'm into event centers. But they're going to give that presentation tomorrow night, again, 6:30, right here.
No, I believe it's at the community center.
Are you sure? Because I was told.
Yeah, it's community center.
Is it? Well, I'm glad you said that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's.
South room of the community center. Yeah, the last meeting was in here, but it was because there was a conflict down there. It's my understanding it's back at the community center.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, I just want to let everybody know. And probably a good idea for the alderman to be here too, anyway. Especially.
Alderman Lewis?
Yes, sir. I wanted to provide one update. I don't know if anyone caught this in the newspaper, but there was a meeting last Tuesday in Sherwood. Some folks over there that have formed a Sherwood Education Foundation for purposes of school district detachment, and that subject was discussed over there. I'll try to make it as succinct as I can to say that they are looking at similar option of separating from the Pulaski County Special School District with a number of schools there. There are some differences, I think, to their approach. They seem to be moving very rapidly toward detachment and hoping that they can do it simultaneously with Jacksonville. The mayor and I discussed that a little bit, and I won't judge as to, how sound their course of action is, but I think it is noteworthy to recognize that another school district is eyeing that same motive that Maumelle is, and we, or at least I wish them the best, and we'll continue to watch things from that direction.
Thank you, Alderman Lewis. There's no other alderman's comments. Madam City Attorney?
No, sir.
Mr. City Clerk?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I ought to just recognize that, a year and a half ago, me and Mr. Lowry weren't best buddies. But it's nice to be able to put aside electoral differences and go to work for the good of the city, and so I appreciate his help with the flags and the AV proposal and that stuff.
If there's no other business, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All those in favor, please signify by saying yes.
Yes.
Any opposed, say no. Meeting is adjourned.